Hello and welcome to the recap video of the New York City Marathon. Thanks for joining me guys today. If you've been to these recaps before, you know they're long, so buckle up, grab something to drink. Bear with me, I don't know how to tell short stories. This will be no different, I'm sure. So let's get to it. I'm just gonna give you guys a little bit of a background on me. Usually when I do these videos, I jump right in. They're really coaching videos. It's pretty rare now that I'm doing any videos about my own racing, at least on the regular YouTube channel. But just to know a little bit about me, I've been running for over 20 years. I'm a mom of 3 kids. They are currently 13, 11, and 8. I've now run, as of New York City Marathon, 14 marathons. I'm a full-time running coach. It's really where I spend most of my time now. But I love being able to coach via YouTube too. And I'm partial to the marathon. If you watch enough videos, you know that I love it so much. I could talk about it all day long, I feel. So I just love what I get to do as a running coach and connect with you here. The reason that I don't really talk too much about my own running, like if you've been watching the channel for a while, that I used to do, and I would do kind of like weekly marathon training videos, is really because I found in order to continue my love of running and also be a running coach and do these videos, I really needed to mostly separate the two and not feel like I had to be recording content out on my runs. Even these races, I'm not really filming a ton of content because I want to be there to just take in the whole experience. And as much as I love the opportunity to be able to share with all of you, I'd rather keep that more to the coaching space and what I've learned in my own journey, what I'm learning through coaching athletes every single day, versus really giving a full glimpse into my own running. So hopefully you understand that. It's really just to separate hobby from business, which I think that you can understand. And that's really helping me be able to have longevity in both, which is what I really value. So I don't really have notes written out for this video. I'm just gonna kind of go for it and wing it and talk about the experience. This is the extent of what I have written down, just some headings. So we got that background knocked out of the way. If you guys wanna know anything else about me, pop it in the comments. I love to chat about it. I know that was a quick intro. Why did I sign up for the New York City Marathon? Well, if you look at these posters, and I got New York up there, I've run a few of the majors now, or I guess a couple before in New York. So I've run Boston twice, and then I ran Chicago last year. And I don't really have an intention of necessarily doing all 6 majors. I know that's a really big deal to someone. There's going to be 9 soon, but I don't necessarily have that as a goal. But with New York, it was different, and I really honestly have just always wanted to run New York. I've heard so many amazing things about it, that it's really like the one to get into, the one to run, that it will be just this incredible, memorable experience. And that's exactly what it was. I can't wait to tell you guys more about it. But so I had always kind of intended on finding a way, but I know that it's incredibly difficult to get into. So this is kind of a quick-ish story, as much as I can, of really how I ended up on the New York City starting line. And I've talked here and there about this on other platforms, but not a lot here. So it's very likely that people don't really know this story. I think a lot of people didn't even know I was running the New York City Marathon until I put that post up the night before. But I have this athlete, Sal. I've actually done an interview with him on this YouTube channel before, way back in 2022, when he was raising money for the National Kidney Foundation, running the New York City Marathon. And he was doing this really in honor of his son, Tyler, who he had given a kidney to in the year prior. So gave a kidney to his son in 2021, and then ran the New York City Marathon for the National Kidney Foundation in 2022. And obviously, he and his wife had been raising a son with kidney disease, and really just the interview was a lot about that. And honestly can't imagine as a parent what it would be like to go through. They're just incredible people, an incredible family. He's such a great, caring, selfless human, and just loved having the opportunity to work with him for his first marathon in that capacity. He went on to work with me to run the Disney Marathon. We worked together a little bit longer, and then that summer he decided to transition a little bit to triathlon, try something new. He was going to be running the Disney Marathon again, which I was supposed to work with him for that, but he was taking some time off for the triathlon. In his first triathlon, he was hit by a car on the bicycle portion and suffered very severe injuries, including a traumatic brain injury. And I'll never forget the day that I received the text from his wife about it, saying that he was in critical condition in the hospital. And there was a GoFundMe page set up for him. There would be updates here and there, but really, I didn't know too much of what was going on. I think that was purposeful. And other than donating money, I just felt really helpless. I had really formed a connection with him through the process of training and learning about his family and interviewing him and all of that. And I just felt compelled to do more. And at that time, I really didn't know what the outcome for him was going to be. And I certainly didn't know if he was going to be able to run again, or honestly, if that was the most important thing, obviously, at that time. If he'd be able to raise money for the National Kidney Foundation again, which I knew was an organization that was so important to him. And so in that moment, I vowed to run for the National Kidney Foundation in his honor at the New York City Marathon. That was a plan pretty much from the time that I found out that he was in the hospital. And he began to recover slowly but surely. He would give me updates in the fall, and he was actually going for the 9+1 program, which is a way to get into the New York City Marathon. And he only had to do one more virtual race to get that accomplished. And he did that in November of last year. He walked a 5K with his wife in circles around a local park, and he was able to get that knocked out. And he basically just told me, I can't wait to be back. And I felt like in that moment, I knew that he would be there even after everything he'd endured. And I feel like it's really hard for me to share, completely what he went through. And honestly, I don't even know everything. It's not my story to share, but just what he had to go through to even begin to marathon train was more than I could ever imagine. And I just really was super heartbroken that this was, what was happening to him after all he'd went through with his son and giving him a kidney and all of that. But what you have to know about Sal is he's a fighter. He wasn't just gonna let this get him down. And so, like I said, we kind of had been conversing, but in the spring, I think in March or so, he reached out to me and said that he'd been getting back to consistent running and he wanted to talk about working together for marathon training. And around this time, I don't know the exact dates, but I had also already signed up for the New York City Marathon, running with the National Kidney Foundation. So fundraising kind of began around that time as well. And it just felt all meant to be. I don't know how to explain it. Someone wrote on one of the Instagram posts that I put up is that sometimes we don't know why, but people come into our lives for certain reasons. And I just really believe that. So we started working together. I did not charge him, obviously. This was my opportunity to give back to him like I had wanted to, and just to see him ready to marathon train was absolutely amazing. It definitely looked very different than what someone would normally probably train like, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But Sal is also not the type of person to just go in lightly. If he has a goal, he's gonna go for it. I don't know that he ever missed a run this entire training cycle. It was very effort-based for him. Meanwhile, obviously, I was marathon training as well. And honestly, I had kind of a hard training cycle. Mentally, it was different what I was going for with this marathon. And we had actually decided that we were going to run together. So it was really more about being there to support Sal, being super strong for him, kind of whatever he wanted to create on the day, that I would be there for that and be strong for that. That's what really mattered to me, and just have an amazing experience, honestly, and run for those who can't, run for everyone who suffered from kidney disease, and really having that in my mind as that being the reason. But you can still have hard times in your own training, even when that's the goal that you're going for and it looks a little bit different. I had COVID at the beginning, and I think that kind of just set things a little tougher for me for the whole time. I don't know. I still ran really good mileage, and all in all, I run 6 days a week. I always do. It just didn't click like normal, and it is what it is. That's okay. So that was kind of my training. And yeah, by the end of the training, we talked and strategized for race day. And it was really his goal to just run a really strong race as a thank you, I think he had said, for everyone and how they supported him when he was in the hospital, and just to show everyone I'm back, and all of your support and your prayers and your donations help me get back to where I'm healthy again and doing the things that I love, which is absolutely amazing to see. Other than that, he did kind of have an idea in mind that he wanted to run around 9s, is what he said. And so that was in our minds, but we also never ever said anything like 4-hour marathon. We weren't super specific about it. I think that was purposeful in that there was not going to be any disappointment in this day. Sometimes when you put a hard number on something, if you don't get it, there's a lot of disappointment there. And that was never what this day should have been about. And we didn't want to have any of that kind of creep into what was supposed to be super, super special. So just kind of a loose goal there, but gave us a good idea of what the race was going to look like, since we were obviously running together. It's important to know when you're running side by side that you have the same thought in mind of what's going to get you to the finish line. So just like I would for any athlete, I put together a race plan for him with all the details, and that was in our heads going to the start line. So we'll transition to days leading up, the expo. I personally was actually pretty sick on, I guess, Wednesday, Thursday. So Halloween, I was not feeling great still, a little bit feverish, but the biggest thing was that I had a really sore throat, like literally that feeling of swallowing razor blades, which is absolutely terrible, which I could make mostly go away and bring the fever down taking Advil. So I did that, but it was still nervous about getting on an airplane on Friday. Really ended up transitioning to these like random sporadic coughing attacks. Like I probably had like one every couple of hours, just if something irritated my throat. But ultimately, on Sunday morning, when I woke up, I was totally fine. The expo, I felt mostly good the day before, and so thankfully, I felt really good going into race day. Maybe not 100%, but pretty darn close. And I had 5 athletes running the New York City Marathon, so Sal plus 4 others, and I did get to meet all of them when I was in New York. One of them I met up with the day before at the expo, and we had lunch together, which was so fun. I kept things really chill. When I was in Chicago last year, things were not chill. I planned a shakeout run. I planned a lunch with my athletes, some who were running, some who lived there, which was so fun, but also didn't really make for a relaxing day in my own head the day before the race. And this was a little bit more chill. My husband and I had done a shakeout run just on our own in the morning, which is just how I am. I don't really join like those big shakeout runs that people put on. They sound super fun, but I'm a much more introverted, just chill, my own timeline type of person. So that's what I did. And then the next morning, woke up after an okay night of sleep. I had slept really, really well on Friday night, the night that we got to New York City, and slept pretty terrible the night before. I get a lot of questions about that too. It's really normal. Like you want your sleep leading up to like that second to last night to be really good. It's really important. But the reality is you've got to expect that you're probably not going to sleep that well the night before. You've got the jitters, your mind is racing, all those things. That's really normal. You're worried about your alarm, like sleeping through your alarm, even though you literally never have. That's how I am. And just all the things. And so that's okay. We got on a 5:30 bus to Staten Island. So we picked up the bus at the New York Public Library. If you are someone who's going to be running the New York City Marathon, this was so easy. I think probably taking an earlier bus is better just for that peace of mind. It's much more relaxed. So I met up with Sal and I met up with one of my best friends and athlete, Renee, and we all got on the bus together. It was so smooth. They say to expect 90 minutes. I think it maybe took 70 minutes. Just easy. I would recommend that over the ferry just from hearing other people talk about that. Anytime you have to make a connection, I think it just makes things more stressful. So that was super simple, which also meant that we got to the race prep area super early, but that's okay. I'd rather have that and feel like I have lots of time. There were tons of porta potties. I feel like things were so much more organized than Chicago. Maybe that was just how I kind of went through the morning, but gosh, for a race that's 55,000 people, I mean, I know Chicago's obviously just as big or close. New York felt so organized. I can't say enough good things about just like the athletes village before. So I feel super lucky and VIP this year because I have two athletes who work for MasterCard. And so we were able to go into the MasterCard tent because I know them. So that was awesome, even though we weren't running for MasterCard. And man, it's going to be tough to ever do another marathon without having like a tent experience, because it was a really nice day. It was like a perfect day for running, which also meant that it was cold in the morning, right? Like we were pretty well dressed and everything, but that was just nice to be in the tent before, and they had coffee and bagels and like real bathrooms and a trailer in the back, which was really awesome. So it's hard, I guess, for me to say that it was more organized and stuff in New York City than Chicago, because obviously I didn't have that in Chicago. But even just getting into the corral and going to a bathroom once we were in the corral was a super short wait. And I never got to use the bathroom for the last time in Chicago, which honestly I think led to some of the issues that I had also in Chicago. And this was just, it was just so smooth. Everything, it really blows your mind that everything could be that organized with that many people. So kudos to you, New York City Marathon. You guys did a great job. So then I'm with Sal. We're ready to walk to start. They play the national anthem, and then next thing you know, it's kind of time to start. It's one of those things, right? It's you wait, and then all of a sudden it's just time to go. The first mile of the race is completely uphill. It's up the Verrazano Bridge. And so it's just a good time to take it all in. And I just really encourage everyone to run by effort, because you're running uphill, you've got the excitement, but you also just need to like chill out. So we didn't look at our watch at all. And then it's really downhill on the second mile. So kind of the same thing, running by effort, but you're also not like trying to make up the time that you lost. Really just that time to like ease in, like, okay, yep, here I go. Like I'm running a marathon. I've got 26 miles to go. By the time you get to mile 2, still got 24. So it's kind of like, okay, wait till mile 2, and then you can start thinking about your race strategy. What are your paces? Are you locked in there? I think there was some GPS error I noticed later looking at the graph, and I wasn't clicking right on the miles, which isn't always a GPS issue, but just looking at the graph on Final Surge later, it looked to be that was the reality. So that was bridge number 1. And then honestly, guys, I'm like not good about remembering where things are or what mile I did for this right race strategy for people. So I feel like that's a little bit better, but ultimately there are 5 bridges. So it's kind of like, if you can break it up into that, it's great. Cause then you're like, okay, now I've got 1 bridge down, I've got 4 more to go. Then you get to the second one, okay, 2 down, 3 to go. The really nice thing about being with Sal is he works in New York City, he lives in Long Island, and so he's very familiar with the area. He's raced it before, so he was kind of like my tour guide. You know, when we get up here, the next bridge is coming in. Kind of just nice to tell me those things. So that was great. I felt like we fed off each other's energy so well. We talked a little bit about pace, like, oh, we're a little fast, or we're a little slow, or oh, just here's where we're at. I feel like it was more that versus like anything else is like, okay, this is the pace that we're at. You know, we had some check-ins with each other, but we didn't talk a ton. I had a laugh because my foot was hurting from like mile 2, really just like a shoe issue, I think. And it was just one of those things where it's like nagging, but it's not super painful, but it's like kind of always what you're thinking about. So just super annoying. At one point, Sal said to me, "Is like, you run so confidently. It's really helping me." And I'm like, "Oh, good. That's great to hear, because my foot really hurts." So it's just funny. Like, you know, you never really know what someone's thinking, or people often look like super strong when maybe they're not feeling that way. So I was like, well, I'm glad that you're getting that vibe from me, which, you know, pace-wise, I felt good and everything. There's a lot of weaving. We actually ended up in not the best wave we could have ended up in, which that was my fault. I had put just randomly put 3:50 as a time when I first signed up, which was like way, way months in advance, right? So to me, I was like, oh, 3:50, yeah, I think that's probably like a realistic time. Like I'm not going for a PR. I'm not racing for time. At that time, I didn't even know if I was running with Sal or anything like that. So it was sort of just an arbitrary time. But if I would have just put in like my best time from Boston, we would have ended up much earlier, and we could have been in Sal's wave, which was earlier. So I think that tripped us up a little bit. There definitely were people not going for 3:50 in our wave, which we weren't running at that pace either. But just a lot of swerving around people. 55,000 people in this race, and it felt like 55,000. So that is what I'll say. The race itself is just unreal, indescribable, honestly, just like the crowds, the noise, the energy, the excitement, all of it. I mean, that's what makes it so great. And just running through these different areas of New York, just different vibes. It's great. But if you have a hard time with crowds, then this isn't going to be the race for you, or you just kind of have to adjust your expectations, be flexible, and know that. And I think that is what was so great about Sal and I, is just we didn't let it bother us. It was what it was. It is a little bit harder to like swerve around people when there's two of you and there's so many people, because it's kind of constantly, we are looking for each other. Hey, are you next to me? Just kind of one of those things where you keep getting stuck around people. So there was a lot of that, but obviously it was so worth it. And I think the cool part of New York is there's so much energy and people everywhere, but then there's also the bridges that are pretty quiet. The Queensboro Bridge, I think in particular, was the one that was super, super quiet. That was also a really tough area of the race. So probably one of our slowest miles besides the very first mile. And you can kind of just like feel everyone's struggle a little bit at that point. Like it's almost palpable. So it's just a tough point in the race. It's mile 15, 16, I believe. And, so you're pretty deep into the race at that point, but you still have a long way to go. So it's really important that you're managing your effort in that section. Once we passed that, we knew we were going to see our families soon. I had gotten a text from my husband about where he was, which was pretty close to where Sal's family was going to be. So they were maybe a mile apart from each other, a little bit less. So we saw Sal's family, which was just like re-energizing and just so fun to see them. See Sal run over and hug his wife and hug his son. Got a picture, so that was super great. Yeah, so we're like second half at this point, right? We had come in at the half at like 2:02 and a half. And so at that point in my head, again, we didn't really talk about this, but I was like, oh, we can get 4 hours, if we really want it, if we really go for it, we can. But honestly, and again, there was no discussion, but it was like, we knew our families were coming. There's a bathroom stop in there too. So it wasn't really like we were going for getting under this time. Like it wasn't the most important thing, right? It was the experience and seeing our loved ones, and which I think just made the day. It made the day. Like it made it so incredible. We saw my husband a little bit after that, kind of same thing. Like Sal took our picture. I got to hug him and I yelled at him because he told me he was going to be 82nd and literally standing like.
You said 82nd. This is 83rd.
Close enough. You crushed it, man.
All right, man.
Keep it up, buddy.
Thank you very much. Good.
And just like, gave us the energy that we needed to keep going. The New York City Marathon is hard. I definitely would say it's the hardest course I've ever run. It has similar elevation gain to Boston, but Boston is a net downhill, and Boston also is pretty much downhill from 21 to the end, versus like there's a lot of hills still when you get to mile 22 and on for the New York City Marathon. So it's definitely different, but I also like the mental challenge of the races like this, where you really have to tap into effort and pay attention to those things. It's much more about listening to your body versus like just sitting at a pace. I love that mental aspect, honestly. I love the difference. And Chicago is definitely an easier race course if you're going for a PR, but I love that part about New York City too. And time is not everything. So then you get to Fifth Avenue, and Fifth Avenue is like the slow burn hill. Like it kind of doesn't even look like a hill, but you can tell it's a hill. And it just seems like it goes on forever and ever. I feel like it's, I don't know, 3/4 of a mile. I'll probably get this stuff wrong. So, and that's before you go into Central Park. And then once you get into Central Park, it's just feels amazing because you know it's gonna be soon. It's still hard. You're gonna be having another like 1.5 to 2 miles to go once you get there, but you know it's coming soon. And it's just really exciting feeling. It's also this weird feeling that I get at the end of marathons where it's like you're ready for it to be over, like you're really tired, but you're also sad that it's almost over because it's been so incredible. And not too long after that, I want to say it was 1.5 miles, maybe. I don't think it was within the last mile, but it was close. We saw Sal's friends, and he knew that they were maybe going to be there, but he didn't know where he was going to see them for sure. And I don't know that he really expected to like see them there. And we accidentally ran past them. And then all of a sudden I look back and point backwards. I'm like, there's your wife, there's your family. And then he's like, my friends are here. So I'm like, go hug them. So he had to run backwards at that point to go hug them, but it was just like so incredibly special, just knowing what he'd been through. And here are a couple of his, best friends, family supporting him. I just can't even describe it. And just honestly, I think we spent those last couple miles just really, I know he was the same, just this really internally thinking about how special it all was, and for him to be there, that he made it, that he was alive, that he's here doing what he loves, that I'm running out for the Kidney Foundation. Like, this is the first race I've really run that was not for me. Other than like Dopey Challenge this year, I've raced every race for time. So things definitely were different this year for me, and it was even better. I mean, honestly, I'm not gonna lie, like I loved my PR, the Boston Marathon. It will always be an incredible day to me, but this was incredible in a different way. And I hope that you guys get a chance to. It doesn't have to be running for charity for one of these huge events. Like, it's a lot of money to raise. It's a lot of hard work to raise the money, but just even running for more of a local race for a charity, right? Running for a higher purpose than just yourself. I just highly recommend it. It's very different. So then we came up on the finish line and finished together. Every step was together. I will say I was a little bummed because at the finish line, because there's so many people, it's like we're racing fast, and then there was this one woman who, it's like if we had a little more time, we would have like passed her and hooked up again, but we ended up being like next to her, so she was between us. So it was like us three versus like us being right next to each other, but that's okay. And yeah, we were just ecstatic. I was like, you did it! Oh, this is so amazing. I mean, obviously I felt incredible. Finishing a marathon there should always be a celebration. I don't care like what your time is or how you got there. Like, marathons are so hard. They take so much training to get to that finish line. Everything kind of has to go right. We know that anything can happen in a marathon. So for us to have both just felt so great the whole time, not that it wasn't hard, but just felt so great the whole time, finished with a smile, and still feeling though like we worked hard at the end, pushed ourselves. We absolutely did. And I just couldn't have asked for it to go any better. I hope he feels the same way. And then you get your medal, obviously, which I forgot to bring it, but I love the medal. It was so special seeing Sal get his put around his neck. And then the New York City Marathon gives you these awesome ponchos. Like, they are fleece lined, so they're super warm, but we were still absolutely freezing. I mean, like I said, the weather was honestly so perfect for a marathon, but that also means that you're gonna start freezing pretty soon after. And because the race starts so late, like, we didn't even finish till 2:30, and you're in New York City, so it's like there is no sun from the buildings by that point in time. But the walk to find our families was so long, definitely the longest ever. We were also moving really, really slowly, so that was part of it, but eventually found our families and saw my husband first, hugged him, just thanked him. He's always so supportive. He's my rock. He supportive in anything I do, even these crazy things, running these marathons, starting a run coaching business. He's always been my biggest champion. I just can't be more grateful for that. Sorry. And then we walked to find Sal's family, and it'll always just be one of the happiest moments I've witnessed. Just know everything that their family has been through. To see them come together in that moment, and wow, he made it. He really did it. He did exactly what he said he would. He's such an inspiration, and I'm so lucky to know him. Sorry, I got some tissues. Anyway, as I was saying, yeah, he's just such an inspiration. I'm so lucky to know him, and I just can't thank everyone enough who is watching this and did donate to my fundraiser. I know for people watching on YouTube, I didn't give a lot of opportunity. The plan was to put it out to all of you, but I did get some donations very last minute when I put out on YouTube, and that was absolutely amazing. But honestly, just thank you for supporting the channel. I wouldn't be able to have these experiences and have ever been even in this position if it wasn't for all of you and your support. And yeah, I hate to make it about me, but I'm grateful too. And I just feel really lucky to be able to be there and to have runners I coached who honestly, they like freaking crushed it. It is not a PR course, but we had 3 PRs. Sal's was a course PR by 22 minutes. And then my other athlete, he had just run a marathon a handful of weeks before. So this was like his celebration run with no expectations. And he had an awesome race too. It was just like, couldn't have asked for a better day for the team. If you ran it, I hope you also had an incredible day. If you guys have more questions about the race, please let me know. I feel like I just can't even do it justice talking about it, which is really tough, but it's going to be a hard day to top. That's for sure. And that's what one of my other athletes said. And I absolutely agreed. There's just something special. I wouldn't necessarily choose it if like you are definitely going for time, but obviously people showed that you can PR there, and it's unlike any other. So thank you guys for watching, sticking with me. I told you this would be long. As of for what's next, I do have something sort of in the works in my head, but it is not confirmed, so I'm not going to say it yet, but stay tuned. And as always, you guys, I just thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here, for watching. It really means everything to me to have a platform in this space and to get to coach and do what I love to do. I just feel really grateful. So I hope you have a great day, and I'll catch you in the next one.